Bienvenidos a Las Voceras, mi nombre es Anibel Melo y conmigo está Carmen Luciano, licenciada en Finanzas.
Hola.
Carmen, tengo un tema bien interesante que nos pasa a muchos empresarios y es el deseo de tirar la toalla, como decimos, al día a día. Algunas personas pues se sienten muy agobiadas todos los días, pelear por su casa, pelear por su familia, pelear por su sueño, pelear por su negocio. ¿Cómo desafiamos lo que sentimos por dentro cuando ya no queremos hacer más nada en nuestras vidas?
Bueno, eso es cierto, nos sucede a todo el mundo, ¿ok? Tú no eres la única, ¿ok? Yo soy más mayor que tú. Se lo he pasado muchas veces más. Lo que tenemos que hacer es encontrar esa paz y entender que situaciones, obstáculos, lo que queramos llamarlo, van a suceder. Tenemos que cambiar nuestra manera de pensar. Y algunas veces puede ser difícil, ¿verdad? Porque para uno todo sería súper si todo anda derechito, tranquilamente, pero esa no es la realidad, ¿verdad que no? Entonces también tenemos que tener mucho cuidado con quienes nos están alrededor, porque si son personas negativas, siempre tienen sus opiniones, ¿verdad? Dicen, tengo mi opinión, pero esas opiniones pueden desanimar a uno también.
Sí.
So, tenemos que tener cuidado, tener en presente que situaciones van a suceder y cuando sucedan, ahí es cuando atacamos el problema o buscamos soluciones, pero no entregarse de una manera que uno dice, como se dice en inglés, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm out.
Sí, fuera, ya, terminé, finito. Bueno, para mí es una historia muy interesante porque ya pues tengo más de una década en mi profesión, en lo que hago, en el negocio. Muchas personas no sabían que yo iba a durar y permanecer tanto tiempo en lo mismo. Sí tuve muchos retos y muchas veces que me sentía que ya no lo quería hacer. Y es un sentimiento que hay que prestarle atención.
Sí.
Que hay también, algunas veces porque tú estás cansado en sí, tu cuerpo, tu mente, y tienes que darte un momento para descansar, para pensar, descansar. Incluso las personas que duran mucho tiempo sin tomar un receso, sin tomar sus vacaciones. Tomar las vacaciones es muy importante porque ahí entonces puedes descansar y pensar más sharp, como le decimos en inglés, más afinado, cuáles son los próximos pasos, las próximas estrategias. Y es normal sentirse de esa forma, así que no te sientas mal si te sientes como que voy a tirar la toalla, ya esto no sirve, estoy tan cansado, al menos que sea una situación real, que estás, como decimos nosotros, sangrando dinero y en realidad nada está funcionando por un largo tiempo, porque algunas veces sí, algunas veces esa es la realidad en los negocios, pero si tienes que alcanzar un sueño, sigue al día a día, continuando todos los días, haciendo lo que tienes que hacer para llegar hasta el próximo nivel. Te digo que yo leí un quote o un decir de Ford. Imagínate que todas estas personas que han inventado cosas que utilizamos al día a día, como Edison con la electricidad, entre otras, que una y otra vez seguían peleando por lo que querían. Imagínate si ellos no, if they would give up.
Yeah.
Si tuvieran tirado la toalla, no tuviéramos toda esta tecnología que nosotros disfrutamos el día de hoy.
Y el pollito de Kentucky Fried Chicken.
El pollito.
¿A quién no le gusta ese pollito?
Sí, ese pollito de Kentucky, sí.
Y
es una historia muy...
El señor Sanders, ¿verdad? Él no se dio por vencido. ¿Cuántos añitos él tenía?
No,
más o menos.
Añitos no, añotes. El señor
Añotes.
tenía 70 años.
Ya, y no se dejó por vencido, pasó por muchos rechazos, problemas en su matrimonio. La historia es larga, pero mira lo que sucedió. Y eso nos puede pasar a nosotros, podemos desanimar porque así son los negocios y la vida también. Tenemos nuestros tiempos que estamos flotando.
Estamos ricos y después otro mes estamos pobres.
Estamos llorando y con el miedo porque no entra el miedo,
negocios,
¿verdad? No entra el miedo si vamos a superar o no, voy a estar bien este mes o no. Eso puede suceder y podemos tener esos meses o años que uno supera. Pero nunca jamás dejemos de dejar de creer en nosotros, de seguir hacia adelante, no te dé por vencido. Y es muy importante, y yo sé que lo recalco mucho, pero personas positivas, ¿verdad?
Que te sumen a tu vida, que te ayuden. Incluso yo estaba viendo o leyendo un artículo, porque me encanta la lectura, donde es importante asociarte con personas que te sumen y que puedan guiarte en el camino correcto. Si eres un empresario y eres nuevo aquí, porque aquí en el centro de la Florida vienen muchos empresarios a invertir. Si eres empresario y no sabes el mercado o no eres especialista en algo, tienes que buscar los expertos necesarios para llevarte al éxito. Muchos pequeños negocios quieren hacer todo ellos mismos y es imposible llegar al próximo nivel para entonces obtener el éxito que tanto anhelas.
Pero eso también tiene que ver con la persona. Si es una persona orgullosa, va a tener tiempos más difíciles. Pero una persona humilde que está abierto de aprender, de entender y crecer, y está alrededor de personas que quieren que supere, eso le va a ayudar muchísimo. Nosotras tenido la experiencia y hemos tenido conversaciones profundas, la diferencia en tener a alguien positivo y personas negativas o que están llenos de sus opiniones, que sinceramente no tienen nuestro bienestar en mente.
Sí.
¿Verdad?
Sí. Y bueno, ustedes no se pueden perder nuestra historia empresarial, porque todos tenemos nuestra historia. Vamos a verla.
I moved to the States from Jamaica like in my preteens. So my first set of friends in school were in the foster care system. And I used to rally for my parents to adopt all of them. It was 5 sisters. But I became best friends, especially with one of them. And I didn't know anything about foster care system. We don't have anything like that. You know what I mean? I mean, we do in Jamaica, but I didn't know anything about it. And she ended up getting in trouble in the foster home and ended up going to a group home. So when she went to the group home, she was being abused that night by a counselor. I went with her, I rallied, we talked to so many people that we could, but nothing was done about it. It just kept happening. So I felt like it was my responsibility to do something about it because I was sleeping safe at night and this girl wasn't. I didn't think it was fair. So I ran away from home and I spent 3 days in her closet. I planned to come out of the closet if I saw the person, but I was a kid, you know, so don't ask me what I would have done. But at that young age, I had that, you know, hero complex that followed me throughout my life. And it led me to that 19-year-old girl who met my first boyfriend, and I was just ecstatic. You know, I saw this guy, and I don't have any relationship, you know, issue or anything that I could have even looked out for because this is my first boyfriend, you know, first boyfriend, first love, first everything. So it's an exciting time in your life, you know. We went to the clubs together. We danced our butt all over New York City, from the Palladium to the Red Zone nightclubs. You know, amazing. Until that shift happened, you know. And that shift happened when I became pregnant. And I ended up moving in with him permanently. You know, my parents were not the type of people that were into baby out of wedlock. I love my parents dearly. They've always been good to me. But this is a part of my life that they couldn't necessarily deal with. And then I moved in with him. And when I moved in with him, the relationship was just so abusive. I remember one day I was going out to work because I used to model at the time. And I was in the bathroom and I was getting dressed. And, you know, he was banging on the door and he wanted to come in and he wanted to talk. But I knew in my spirit what that meant because I went through this with him before, but not to this drastic event that happened that day. So I let him in, and I remember we were talking, and then all I remember is waking up in the bathtub full of blood. And I remember getting up and going and looking in the mirror, and I couldn't see my face. I was like, what is going on? You know, I saw just my eyes, but like my whole mouth and everything was just bloody. And I ended up having to get stitches inside my mouth. And at that point, that snapped happened because I thought I was going to literally kill him. I chased him throughout Brooklyn. You know, he called 911 before I got back to the house. It was horrible. And when I got there and the police officers and, you know, New York City saw my face, he said, get your stuff, get your baby, and don't you ever come back. And I did that night. But I had nowhere to go, you know. So that's how I ended up becoming homeless in New York City at 19 with a child, you know. And a lot of my family didn't even know I went through that because it was such a shame for me. Like, who do I share that with? I just felt so alone in that space, and it was a hard space. And it was down in Manhattan in the Village. You know, there was a drugstore, GNC drugstore, and they had a sign in the window, and I went in and applied for it, and I got hired. You know, and when I got hired, I showed up with my son, and I'll never forget, the owner was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't have anywhere. I don't have anyone to watch my son. He was the greatest person. He allowed me to work while the girls watched my son, you know, and we ended up staying there for quite a while in a storage room that he had in the back that he made into a bedroom, you know, for us. So you never know where life will take you. You never know what will happen. And if I look back today and I say, you know, are they the signs there? They were there. They were definitely there. But I thought that, not that I could change him, but I ignored them, you know, because I had nothing to compare them to. Because at this point I'm saying, is this something I deserve? Because I didn't see my family do this. My dad didn't do this. I don't come from an abusive, you know, background. So I couldn't decipher what made this happen. The only thing that I could attribute to at that time is low self-esteem, because for me to stay, even though I saw the signs, and they were gradual, you know, we discount them because they seem so small. And then you end up with that one big occurrence, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that this happened to me. And even before I left, you know, there's so many women that are in situations that they shouldn't be in. Like for me, he forced himself on me one night, you know, and what do we call it? It's rape. But it's not classified as rape because I know this person. So who do you tell? Who is going to believe you? But no means no. It's your body. It's your right. It doesn't matter if you're married. It doesn't matter if you're in a relationship. No means no. It is not okay, because it took me years to forget about that. It took me years to work on that switch. So the signs are there. Everything is happening, but I'm still ignoring it and move on. And that's not good, you know. And as life went on and I'm there in the store, I was able to work my way out of that. And the relationship with my family started to form all over again. But that was my switch for me. You know, we all have that switch in our life. And that 19-year-old girl that had a son that hadn't felt like no one was there, that was my switch. And I needed one person to see me. I needed one person just to see me at that space. And this man did. And I can't ever forget it, because I don't know where I would be
if he didn't see me. You know, so many times we see women and we see girls and we see them out there and we are so fast to judge them, but we don't know their story. And everyone has a story, you know? So I'm fortunate because even though I went through that, I don't discount it. And I'm not sorry because God allowed it to happen. You know, and when God stepped in and I realized who I was and who I was supposed to be, that's when I was like, okay, God, I went through this for a reason. You're going to have to show me how to go through this. And one thing I could say, like, in the hardest times, so much could have happened to me out there and it didn't. I could have been mugged. I could have been abused. I could have been raped. So much. But God was covering me before I even knew him, you know? And it's a journey. And it's a journey that I would never change because it took me to the woman I am today. And that's why we cannot just look at someone and point a finger because it's a journey, you know? And I'm grateful for that journey. And my son is doing great. He's, you know, he went into the Army. He's married. He has his family. We sit down and we talk about it and he understands, you know? So regardless of where we are in life, we always have to remember that those red flags are there for a reason, and I overlooked them and I shouldn't have. 14 years ago, I had a vision. I was standing in a warehouse and I saw all these boxes and the boxes had my name on it. I knew it was makeup at the time, but I didn't know, how am I going to do this? I am a single mother. I have no money. I was just coming through a divorce at the time. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, so I started playing around with makeup in the kitchen, boiling it, and it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster. But I knew if I saw it, then it was mine. If God gives us a vision, it's ours. But we just have to hold on to it. And I did. So 14 years, I would try kind of here and there. I would try and nothing would happen. And then it got to a point where I was like, I don't have any money to do this. What am I going to do? But I kept my eyes on the vision. And I created a second income at the time. So while I was working during the day, I was cleaning homes at night. You know, I wanted this to happen. I think when you put in the work, it goes with it. So 14 years later, I was able to launch Beautiful by Candice Cosmetics and Hughes Cosmetics, which are celebrity brands worn by Oprah Winfrey, worn by Layla Ali. The list goes on. We're at the SAG Awards. And it's just been a journey. It's been an amazing journey because it's taken me in circles that I never saw at a 19-year-old homeless girl, you know? So that's why we have to hold on no matter what stage we are because it's just a journey. And through that, I was able to now go ahead and launch my nonprofit where I work with girls in Central Florida who've been through human trafficking and homelessness because that's my heart. I see them. So the same way that I wanted someone to see me then, I see them. And I just believe everyone has a story and they just need someone to believe in them, you know? So that's been great. That has taken me to the White House. I've been able to meet Michelle and Barack. I've been to, you know, the Capitol and back. You never know where God is going to take you, and it's been exciting. And then outside of that, you know, Point of View talk show. Amazing. You know, that to me is just a platform that God said, now I'm going to expand your territory so that you can talk and people can realize who you were and how you got there. And I love the show because I can talk about God. I can talk about my story. And, you know, it's 5 other women and we share and we vibe. And it means so much when people understand that it's a journey. You know, you don't just wake up and you're there. You gotta keep pushing. You have to take the bad and make it into something good with God's help, because
the journey, it's just ongoing. You know, it doesn't stop.
Si ustedes se identifican con estas historias, use el hashtag soy vocera, soy vocero.
Y no se olviden de compartir con otros nuestras historias. Nunca sabes a quién puedes estar ayudando.
Y te digo una cosa, que ahora vamos en el segmento de belleza y entretenimiento con la bella Saoni de Beauty, Bella, Glam. Vamos a ver.
Lo que a mí me encanta tanto de esta tendencia de maquillaje es que las cejas acomodan la expresión de la cara. No hay forma inadecuada de cómo usar sus cejas. Algunas nos gustan más gruesas y algunas más finas. Pero las cejas naturales o las cejas gruesas están en estilo y no se van para ningún lado. Hoy les explico cómo hacer el look y una receta casera para que les crezcan sus cejas. Muchas mujeres latinas tenemos la suerte de heredar las cejas gruesas, pero ese no es el caso de todas. Con este simple régimen, le aseguro que en poco tiempo tendrá sus cejas más gruesas. Hay 3 diferentes de aceites que son mis favoritos y le aseguro que le ayudarán con el crecimiento de las cejas. El aceite de oliva, el aceite de coco y el aceite de castor. Puede hacer una mezcla de los 3 o usar cualquiera que sea su favorito y masajear el aceite en sus cejas cuando es tiempo para acostarse, y en poco tiempo verá la diferencia. Para rellenar sus cejas y para completar su glam look, les recomiendo una crema, Brow Tip, siempre un color más claro que el color de su pelo cabelludo. La crema le dará la ilusión más natural que el polvo. Recuerde usar un corrector para limpiar las cejas y para que luzca más natural.
Gracias a todos ustedes por acompañarnos semana tras semana aquí en su programa Las Voceras. Denle like si les gusta alguna historia. Acuérdense que puede ir a YouTube a ver el resto de las entrevistas que hemos tenido con los empresarios, ver el resto de las historias empresariales. Y Carmen, tiene que usar el hashtag.
Los hashtags Las Voceras y también Los Voceros, porque sé que nos están viendo.
Use el hashtag soy vocera, soy vocero, y no se olviden, si tienen algún comentario nos pueden escribir a hola@lasvoceras.com. Hasta la próxima.
Chao.